You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
This episode of the Centresteer podcast is brought to you by LT Wright Knives. LT Wright Knives are handcrafted in Ohio with the finest locally sourced materials. They build everything from everyday carry to bushcraft and even overland specific. Everything that LTWK builds comes with a lifetime guarantee and is designed from the ground up to be a solid working knife. Find out more online at centresteer.com/LTWK. The Centresteer Podcast, a Land Rover podcast by Land Rover owners. Welcome to the Centresteer Podcast, the only Land Rover podcast on the planet. This is show number 38 for May 2016. We're part of the 4x4 Radio Network, and I invite you to check out other 4x4 related shows at 4x4radionetwork.com. Also, visit our website, centresteer.com, to listen to previous shows and for show notes. And we have links there for the items we discussed today and also for our guests. And I want to thank everyone for your comments, your follows, your likes on Facebook, Twitter, and email. And a special shout-out to Jerome for connecting us with one of our guests today at SCARR. I'm your host, John Costage, and joining me from wonderful Western Pennsylvania are no contributors. Unfortunately, I have no one else in the studio with me today. I don't know what's happened. Maybe because it's abnormally warm here in Western Pennsylvania, and I myself was just extra tired because it got real hot real quick. Because I like talking about the weather. It was 14 days ago we had our last frost warning, and now it was in the 80s and humid yesterday. It was unpleasant. But I do have folks joining us from Skype, and regular contributor Morgan. Say hello.
Hey, hi from the Green Mountain State, and I can beat you already. It's only been maybe a month since we had our last snow, and it's been 90 the last couple of days.
Oh, geez, that's just too much. That's too much. That's just way too much. For our international listeners, that's all in Fahrenheit. You yes. Do the conversion. I would love for the president on his one of his last acts to just say, we're going to centigrade and we're going to metric, and drop the mic. Anyway, also joining us on Skype, we have two guests today. They're going to join us for the whole show. First, we have Vasily.
Hey, I'm from Atlanta, and since we're talking about the weather, it's hot and humid all the time here, and I don't remember the last time we had snow.
It is Atlanta. It's hot, otherwise known as Hotlanta, right? Hotlanta.
That's what they say.
Yeah, okay. We'll be talking with Vasily later to talk about his obsession with Land Rovers and how that happened. It's a little teaser for the show. And finally, we have another guest, Laura. Why don't you say hello?
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm with Dallas, Texas, and I can beat you guys. We've had storms and heat index in 90s.
Yeah.
I don't envy you.
No, we've had tornadoes here too lately.
Oh yeah. Laura's with SCARR, which is the South. Oh, what's SCARR stand for?
It's South Central Area Rover Rally, presented by Texas Rovers.
There we go. And of course, we'll be talking with Laura later all about SCARR. You have probably seen SCARR in Rovers magazine. Our occasional contributor Jeff Aronson has been to SCARR a number of times, and Laura will give us a lowdown on that a little later in the show. All right, so first up is the news. We like talking about Land Rover news. Unfortunately, May has been kind of slow in Land Rover newsdom, so here's what we got. JLR reports their U.S. sales for April of 16, and generally all good. Jaguar sales, which on a good note, were up 1%. Especially the F-Type had sold very well. Land Rover was down 2% in April, which is a rarity here in the last year or so. But it still was their second highest April sales in U.S. history. JLR overall, U.S. sales year-to-date are up 16%. So things, I think, are going well with all their remodels and new versions and et cetera, et cetera.
And Land Rover itself is up 17%. So I think it's a 1% increase from last year or something like that.
Yeah, they like to put a good positive spin on everything. So there's always the month-to-month comparison, the year-over-year comparison. So yeah, generally things are going well, I think, is the takeaway here.
Yes, and it's probably good that Harold's not here to hear that the F-Pace is up 1%.
Indeed. Yeah, but it is good though. The Jaguar was up 1%. That's generally a good thing. I wasn't surprised that the F-Pace was going to do well. And I don't have this in the show notes, but I saw the picture this month of the Rolls-Royce, or is it the Bentley? I know their companies are split now. They're coming out with an SUV. Anybody see that photo? It was
Sadly, no.
it was a hulking thing. I don't know. Of course, it was a drawing. It wasn't an actual picture, so who knows what the original one
Probably the Rolls. I think the Bentley's already kind of it's been revealed, and I've seen some videos about it. So it's probably the Rolls-Royce.
Okay. Yeah, it's yeah. All right. Let's get into new model news. The Disco 2017 Disco interior has been uncovered, and carscoops.com is where this came from, and their subheadline was, "We're not impressed." And I have to say, I generally agree. It looks just like every other interior, especially a modern Range Rover, which is probably good for the Disco, because I always, they even said this, and I always agreed it was kind of even when the new Discos would come out, it always seemed like a dated interior. So it looks like a modern Range Rover, but I don't know. That leaves me kind of meh. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure the infotainment's probably still 2 generations too old.
You're definitely not wrong.
Yeah, I know that's every time you see something when JLR comes out with it, they say, "Hey, new infotainment system, it's better than ever." And like, yeah, that's
right.
what you said the last 10 times. Yeah.
It's better than the last time, but
That's
doesn't
right.
make it better than, well,
Yeah.
That's right.
still not competitive.
But to be fair to JLR, everyone's struggling with an infotainment system because everybody is. I don't know that there's any that are really that good. My Volkswagen has a basic system. It does what I need it to do, but it's not perfect either. There's problems with it, and so I think they all struggle with it. I don't think anybody's hit the magic mark, but some are, of course, are worse than others.
It's just a little tough seeing, Land Rover come out with so many concepts of what they could do with their vehicles, the transparent bonnet, transparent trailer, all of that stuff, and then they just stick a couple years old infotainment unit in it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. How hard can it be?
You can even drive your Land Rover from your cell phone.
Yes, from outside the vehicle. But back to the 17 Disco, and it's important to point out that I guess it's going to happen with the 2017 model. It will be known as the Disco all over the world, and the LR4 will finally be dropped. So that's, I think, good news for those of us here in the United States. We're sick of that term, the LR3 and then the LR4. And was this going to be the LR5? I mean, was that planned? I don't know.
And I think this is the third full platform change.
That's my
for
understanding.
the Bland.
Right. And this one will have an aluminum platform, and they say that will save 100 kilograms of weight. And of course it'll use the new Ingenium petrol and diesel engines. And then there's all the usual models and submodels are planned. An SVR. There's even a hybrid one coming. So new Disco on the way. There's some, and the link with the show notes of the interior also has exterior shots. So if you haven't seen that yet, you want to check it out. I admit I'm going to be hard pressed to tell the difference. I think between a Disco and a Range Rover and a Range Rover Sport and a Disco and the Disco full Disco, because they all to me look very, very alike. And granted, this one has has a camo paint job. But they all have that bulbous front end, and then they get to go like a floating roof, and then it kind of tapers in the back. Drops down just a little bit. I don't know. Jerry, that's it. Jerry McGovern, that's his name. I hope that's what Jerry wanted, because that's what we're getting.
Yeah, I think he's pretty much have to, at this point, line them all up next to each other to tell them apart.
Indeed. Next up is a new 2017 Range Rover Sport Facelift. It's in its midlife crisis phase, and so they do a little bit of an update. Again, only the reason I brought it up was because there's not much to talk about in the news. So it's just it's a facelift update. Probably have an interior change. So there you go. Not much else to say about that. Interestingly, I've noticed, and this was brought up, I think, in the disco picture. They're getting rid of all the circular AC vents. They're all going to the rectangle ones. Does anybody care? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe,
and on the 2017 Range Rover Sport facelift, it sounds like it's going to be very hard to tell it apart from the SVX version.
Yeah, I did see that in that notes there. Yeah. So, all right. Speaking of Range Rover, it was just again slow news month, but caught on video was a crash of a Range Rover on the Nuremberg Ring, and you can check out the video. That's all it is. It's 12 seconds of a Range Rover coming around the corner, overcorrecting, losing control, smashing the front into the large guardrail, rights the vehicle, and back on the road. That's all we got.
Yeah, it looked like they just came through the corner and just barely lost it and overcompensated and just, went right into the wall. But it was nice to see that it just sort of like backed up and drove away.
Yeah,
okay.
That's true. That was a nice takeaway there, yeah. Just back on the road and off he went. Yeah, I think if that had been a Disco 1 or Disco 2, I think that would have been immobilized. All right, that is it for the main part of the news. We're going to get into some fun news, I suppose. These are stories that have been around a bit. So there is a reporter with Jalopnik called Doug DeMuro. Anybody knows? Am I saying his name right? DeMuro. And
one of those.
We had talked about this video when it first came out, which I think was about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago now. On here's why the Land Rover Defender costs $70,000 US or more, and it's a good primer video, at least in the very beginning, if you're not familiar with North American spec Defenders, how long they were here and the model years and what we had. Then he goes on to tongue-in-cheek, I guess, talk about the Defender and why it's held its value and the fact that he doesn't particularly like it, and then he followed it up with a Range Rover that he had bought. It's a used Range Rover, and he got a full warranty with it, which is a used car warranty, which here in the U.S. people do, but it's not something you would normally do, I suppose.
Generally, it's not a particularly great deal in the long run.
Yes,
that's right.
Except for this, one, he paid $3,900 US for this warranty, and within a year and a half, it had paid for itself. He had spent something close to $7,000 in repairs. The airbags went both sides. The steering column motor failed, I think 2 or 3 times.
And one of those failures was actually during the filming of one of his previous videos on that Range Rover.
That is right.
So entertaining.
I'm not sure why he was so hard on that D90 then, because the Defender you can't break the motor on the steering column or the airbags.
Good point.
Exactly. There's a reason that has none of those.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it doesn't have it, it can't break, right? Yeah. So, bottom line, he ends up saying, "Hey, if you want to buy a Range Rover, don't." That was his, and this was a used Range Rover. What model is that? That's what, 2 models ago now.
Yeah, I think it was the HSE from whichever generation.
Yeah, that looks. I don't know that he ever said the model year of the vehicle, but
yeah, it's he's one of those people who likes to rag on Land Rover and other owners. And I believe he had an Aston Martin that he also had major problems with. Showed it being towed within a few weeks of owning it. So
I thought it was minutes, but yeah,
it might have been minutes. But he's clearly still a fan of British vehicles and a glutton for punishment. So,
well, that's clear because he follows up with late April. The video is entitled "I pissed off a lot of British people and I am sorry," and it's a 4-minute 40 seconds of him apologizing tongue in cheek again for pissing off British, the Range Rover in particular, and and he ends up following it up with holding the Union Jack out the windows. He's driving by, but I guess he bought that Range Rover, but even though he had problems with it, he claims he still likes the brand. He likes the charm. He likes the fun of it. I don't know, but I guess is that his shtick to.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. No, I'm not familiar with his work, but there you go.
Well, I will say on the Aston Martin, he actually decided. Apparently, he tried to drive his in the snow with just standard tires. That clearly did not go well. So he decided to buy some snow tires and drive to Vermont. But unfortunately, this year, Vermont, we really didn't have any snow. So he just had a normal drive up here. And once he got here, he decided to take it for a spin on a small lake with his new studded Nokian tires.
Did that go poorly?
No, it actually went pretty well.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah. It looked like a lot of fun. And turns out that lake is only 10 miles from my house. So I'm going to have to do that some winter.
Nice. There's a guy I follow on Twitter, and of course I can't think of his name and don't have time to look it up. But he does ice. He does the ice driving up your way. What's the new magazine? Well, it's an internet magazine, but it's like Road Track, I think. Not Road and Track, but like Road Track or Road Trends or something.
Not Motor Trends? No, that's...
No, this is new. This is like I think this is out of CNET. Does an auto magazine, and they branded it Road something. So it does the ice stuff. So anyways, we'll have links to all these to Mr. DeMoro's videos if you want to check those out. Again, they're kind of tongue-in-cheek. They'll probably annoy fans of the brand. But, hey, there you go. All right. And one final news story, in the fun part of the world. CNN did their style magazine online, did a whole article on Land Rover, a car fit for the Queen, and I believe coronation is coming up, isn't it? Isn't it that this week? Or isn't the Queen's coronation like June 2nd? And but it's all about the history of Land Rover connection with the British monarchy, and when they have a picture here of the first. Extends back to 1948 when her father, King George VI, was presented with the 100th production vehicle, and so that was pretty cool. Back in all the way at the beginning, to talk about how she learned to drive ambulances in World War II, and she continues to drive. And there's one story in here where she drove a Saudi prince. And the guy was so concerned with the fact that a female was driving, he told her to slow down. It's like, okay, hey, how about that? But there's some really good pictures and you've probably seen some of these before. The one I had not seen, but they have a couple of the state, I think they're called state cars or state tours. And when the Queen...
State Review.
State Review, thank you.
Yeah.
Of which there are 2 or 3 of them are now at the British Motor Museum in Gaydon. I recall seeing 2 of them. And the one made the trip with her when she went around the world touring the Commonwealth back in like 52. So that's kind of neat to see, and they're there, and she still drives, and she apparently likes to drive the Range Rover these days, and she has, as you've seen pictures too, she's driven a Defender. So something to check out if that interests you. And then we'll have a link to this. This was kind of related. There's a new State Review Range Rover that was just given to the Queen as she celebrated her 90th birthday this year. And thanks to Land Rover Owners International, they have I don't know who did this, but there was a GoPro or some other similar camera stuck to the bonnet of that State Review car, and there's like about a 2-minute video you can see of it driving through the streets of town. So if you want to get the view the Queen has, or I guess the Queen's driver has, check out that video. So from the State Review Range Rover.
And they're always nice vehicles as well. They're excellent design to them, and they have this particular one is basically open air top from the second row all the way back, and it's a nice handhold bar all the way around. It's They're very nice.
And there's probably a seat there, too, in case they need to sit down. That was in the original state review car. And they're all the same color, too. They're that kind of reddish purple. I've noticed they're all the same. Or maybe, it's maybe a royal purple. I don't know what the color is, but they're all that same color. So it's, they're nice. They're nicely done. I'm sure they're well maintained.
I'm sure.
Yes. And I believe all of it. I don't think she's ever paid for any of these vehicles. They're all customized and provided to Her Majesty from JLR themselves. I don't think the Queen's ever actually had to pay for them.
Like she pays for anything anyway.
It is her country. I mean, actually, interesting note. She does not require a driver's license. Because apparently,
interesting.
Because it's her country, so it's hers. She doesn't need a driver's license. She's above driver's license. So if you don't want a driver's license, become queen. That's the takeaway, right?
Exactly.
All right, that's the news for May. I told you it was a light month. Maybe we'll have more news for June. If you see any interesting news, dear listener, and you want us to talk about it or comment on it, feel free to pass it on to us. Send an email, tweet, put it on the Facebook, and we'll add it to our list, and maybe we'll talk about it. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about upcoming events throughout the next for the summer months. So stand by. Welcome back to the Centresteer podcast, show number 38, and we're going to talk about some upcoming events here in the U.S. Over the summer. And I know we're seemingly U.S.-centric, but hey, we're from the U.S., so that's the way it is. There are a lot of events that go on in the U.K. During the summer months, and so I encourage you to look at those. There's lots of Facebook pages that can direct you towards those, or if you know of any and you want to put them onto the Centresteer page, please do. It'd be nice to connect people and get them to other events that may be in their area. And a blue jay has just landed in front of my window. That's a massive blue jay. Wow. Okay, sorry. Anyways, before we get into the events, though, I want to update you on the Graham and Louisa Bell Kickstarter. It is now officially over and fully funded. It was, I think, funded within like 10 or 15 days if you were following it. I do know of at least one podcast listener who told Graham that he was listening to the show, and so he or she will get something special. I don't know what that is. It maybe, I don't know what it'll be, but hopefully it'll be something interesting. But it's fully funded, and the Bells are just been at the Overland Expo in Arizona. Arizona, thank you. And in the West, and they will be heading east in the U.S. here, and I expect to have a beer or two with Graham and Louisa come October, I think. So Overland Expo occurred. And then looked like the usual things occurred there, and I don't think there was any snow this year, though, so I'm sure the Bells were happy about that. And then Overland Expo is going to have an East version, and they're going to be at the Biltmore State in North Carolina, I believe, the second weekend in October, which is the week after Mar, and I am planning to hit both of those events this year as part of the podcast. So if you are going to those events, and I'm gonna, my hope is to have stickers and all sorts of stuff, and maybe do some on the road shows at those events. So those are coming up. Here in the Pittsburgh area, I talk about it every year because I like to go, and it's a cool event, the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix, and they have International/British Car Day, and that's the middle of the, I should look up the dates, it's like June 17th, I think, and we'll be there. Plan to have my series truck there, so if you are in the Pittsburgh area, it's a free event. Come on out and check out the all the cars. There's an American section, there's international section, and then the British section, and there's also German cars, and I've seen Izettas there, and I think there's some motorbikes and things. So yeah, it's a cool event. You should it's usually stinking hot. Anyway, and then coming up in June 11th, did I have that right, Morgan? Is the Rover is having their part swap in Virginia?
Exactly.
Okay, and we talked about that, of course, with our guest last month from Rove, whose name immediately escapes me as soon as I went to ask. Look at my notes. David Short talked about that from last month, and that's coming up. So, and then, of course, MAR will take place in October. And then late July, I think the 28th and the 31st is the Money Chef Challenge. That's happening again, which is not directly Land Rover related, but there are Land Rover participants. Are you attending that, Morgan?
I am not sure yet. I would like to, but I don't know what my July schedule is like.
Yes, and
I'm shooting more for the Vermont events, which are mostly in September.
Right. And I know a friend of mine, Nick Danger. Although Danger's not his last name, but you may know him as Nick Danger. Has attended the Money Chef. We'll see if he's going to go again this year. So. So that is events that we just thought we'd talk about and highlight for the next couple months here in the U.S. And also, an event that just happened is leads us into our first guest, and that is the SCARR event. And Laura Shacklette is joining us via Skype. Thank you, from the great state of Texas. And Laura has been a member of the Texas Rovers, I think, for 10 years, and she is the events coordinator for the Dallas-Fort Worth chapter. And I think also, Laura, you are the events coordinator for SCARR. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
Welcome to the show, Laura. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about Texas Rovers and tell us about SCARR in particular.
Okay. Texas Rovers is a Land Rover enthusiast, family-oriented club here in Texas. We actually have 3 chapters. We've got a DFW chapter, the Woodlands chapter, and the Austin chapter. And we have over 200 club members, and we actually have 2 international ones, one in South Africa and one in Switzerland.
Really?
Nice.
Yes.
I didn't know about that. How do those work?
Well, they pay an out-of-state membership, but they still receive, each club member gets a club T-shirt, 2 decals, and then other little goodies, and various sponsors that are club sponsors actually provide discounts for parts or accessories. And several of them are actually SCARR sponsors.
Sweet.
And our Switzerland member, Mark Blazer with City Garage Switzerland, has his own independent Land Rover shop, and he's a big sponsor of SCARR each year. And he invites anybody from Texas or anyone that's a Land Rover enthusiast to make sure you stop by his garage.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you allow Pennsylvanians to be international members?
Yes, actually, we do have several out-of-state members. We've got people in Lantukh, Georgia, and I think Vermont. We actually have several people that are up from the East Coast that are actually club members.
Very cool. And what is the charge for membership?
For in-state membership, that is $40. And once again, you get monthly meeting reminders. You get access to certain forums on the club website. And you do get discounts, like I mentioned earlier, from various sponsors. And then the out-of-state is $25. And each being an out-of-state member and a in-state Texas Rover member, you actually get a discount for your SCARR registration. When we do early registration and regular registration, members have a special price compared to non-members.
Sweet. All right. I guess I'm going to have to sign up and be a Texas Rovers member now.
That's right. And then we offer several events a year. Normally each chapter, we usually try to have an event, 1 or 2 each month, from either a camping, off-roading. We even do like social get-togethers with social dinners. So we're very much, family oriented and try to do stuff for the families, for those spouses that don't like the outdoors, or camping in a tent. We've done road trips where you're actually staying in a hotel, like New Mexico and Big Bend. We've done trips like with Bill Burke, where we've done organized Bill Burke trips. We've done that in Utah twice, and one group did Colorado.
Oh, sweet. Oh, yeah, Bill Burke. Yeah, he's Bill Burke's Off-Road America. Is that the?
Bill Burke's 4x4 America.
There we go. That's it. Yeah. Has he attended SCARR?
Yes, he's actually attended 3 of our events. Okay. And last October, we paid for him to offer our trail leaders training. We do make sure that the trail leaders are trained during our event.
So is SCARR the only event you have, or do you have multiple events?
SCARR is our major event. We do hold several other events. One of our other fall events that's a sponsor event is the North Texas British Chili Cook-Off.
Easy to
and
say,
it's held
right?
usually at Thanksgiving weekend, and we actually have Alan Avery with North Texas British, which is an independent Dallas shop, Land Rover service shop, sponsors. We usually give away prizes, and then we have a Stanley Cup trophy. And how that works is the winner gets to keep it for a whole year, and then when there's a new winner, then we give it to the new winner, and you get your name and the year on that. However, it's usually always cold and rainy at Thanksgiving, so we're actually thinking of moving that up into October. And then several times a year, we go to a place called where SCARR is held, Barnwell Mountain in Gilmer, Texas. It's an off-road park for 4x4s, the rhinos, the dirt bikes. They have primitive campsites and they have primitive RV sites, but then they have regular RV sites, and they do have bunkhouses. And they have they have about 3 cabins, and they do have on site, there's showers and restrooms available. And we'll usually hold like a weekend out there where we go camping and wheeling just to chill.
So you realize the Stanley Cup is going to be in Pittsburgh, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, just checking because I'm a Pittsburgh Penguin fan.
These people get pretty competitive. Normally we only have maybe 6 to 7 people. I like to see it grow to be more, but those people get really competitive on that chili cook-off.
That sounds. I like food, so food and Rovers go well together, don't they?
They do, yeah.
So tell us about SCARR. That's your main event. How many people show up? Where does it take place? And of course, how do people learn more about it?
Okay. SCARR is South Central Area Rover Rally, and it's held every April. It used to be the week of tax, and we pushed it back a week after. And it's held at Barnwell Mountain in Gilmer, Texas. And due to Snell Motors Group, which is Land Rover Dallas, Frisco, and Austin, they provide a big cash donation, which helps us to close the park. So at Barnwell Mountain, when we have SCARR, it's inclusively Land Rovers only. So you're not going to see any other vehicles unless someone pulled their truck on a trailer. And we usually have, this past year, we had over 240 people. We had 105 Land Rover trucks. And what we've noticed in the last 2 to 3 years, where it used to be just always Discos or the old Range Rover Classics, we're actually starting to have more of the newer vehicles. We have a lot more LR3s, LR4s, and we do have a few people who actually do the Range Rovers sports on the off-roading. And then this year was the first year. We've had several people who attended last year that noticed we were a very family-oriented event. So this year we actually had over 40 kids that were 12 and under. So that says a lot for us. We usually have kids activities. We have what's an RC challenge, and we have one that's 10 and under, and then we have one that's like 12 and older. And for those who like RC, doing the RC cars, Barnwell Mountain actually has a track set up. An RC group club actually set up a track, so the kids really enjoyed that. And then Justin with Lucky 8 actually did the blindfolded obstacle course, which was quite fun and seemed to be a real big hit between the parents and the kids.
I've heard of the blindfolded off-road course. Course I've always wanted to try that myself. And for clarification, RC is radio controlled, right? That's the radio controlled cars.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
So this isn't kids driving around in Toylanders.
No.
As fun as that would be.
Though we do have a lot of kids that have grown up driving. I mean, we're starting to get more of that eventually we're probably going to have to add an event where it's like the parent and the kid letting the kid drive.
Right. You actually have seen a Range Rover Sport off-road?
Yes, we do. One of our club members has a Range Rover Sport. Nice.
That's a special person right there.
Yeah, John Button does. He's got sliders, and recently he did something new on his Rover. But yeah, he takes his. He's done it too at there's an off-road park in Arkansas, and he's done it there. So
nice.
It can do almost anything. And he did his trip on the Bill Burke Colorado trip. So you know how extreme that could be.
Oh yeah. So when at Burnwood Mountain, when I hear the word mountain, is it actually a mountain? Is it pretty big? Is it what's the terrain like for the event?
No, it's more red clay, and they're more like trails where you start at one point and you end. It's not like a big mountain. I mean, that's the one thing about Texas. We're large, but we don't have mountains.
Sure.
It's not like going to Colorado, New Mexico, or Utah.
Right.
But you do have a nice terrain. In East Texas, it's very woody, and it's real nice. In the summertime, of course, it gets really hot here. But their trails are rated from 1 to 4. So what we usually do is we do have like organized trail runs for those who are like beginners or intermediate who don't know the trails or prefer to have a guide on the trails. And then you have those extreme people that, they've got their Rovers really decked out, and they usually go off on their own on those trails.
We let them go off on their own.
Yeah, we do. They're called extreme. We let them just go take care of themselves.
No, that's just funny.
Because it is amazing. You get a lot of people who prefer still being involved with an organized trail.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't know the trails at Barnwell Mountain.
Right. Or if you're new. Interesting. You say red clay because there's a lot of clay here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. You
sounds
can never
similar.
get it off your trucks. You always can find the red dust depending
That's
on
right.
when you wash your car. We've actually got one club member, Arto, and he actually washes his car in town when he leaves. So his car, you can't spot any red dirt on his truck.
Good for him. Yeah, that's we've done that when leaving the Mar rally in Virginia. There's the old site. There was a car wash about 3 miles away, and there would always be a line of Rovers at this little car wash to get fuel and hose off their vehicles. Yeah. So Burnwood Mountain taking place in April generally, and
it's Barnwell Mountain.
Barnwell
Mountain. Yeah.
And of course, we'll have a link to Texas Rovers and to SCARR in the show notes, so you can get all the details if you have a problem with my accent. That way, it's my nice way of saying that Laura doesn't have any accent.
That's weird.
No, you actually are. You're very understandable. You have a minimal, what I would consider Texas accent.
That's okay. Not a lot of people like Texas. That's okay.
See, well, it's interesting you say that because it's things like this that make me feel better for my fellow citizens throughout the rest of the union, because it's like we're really not that much different now, are we? Right?
No, we're not.
See, we have something in common, and we like similar things. So there you go. See, it makes me feel better for the rest of the union. So SCARR takes place in April in Gilmore, Texas, which is East Texas. And I know Jeff Aronson, who is the editor of Rovers Magazine, has been there a number of years. I've seen pictures in the magazine, and as you mentioned, it has that kind of red clay, and looks like there's some trees and things. Is there? So you have a number of different trails. Is there camping on site? What other activities go on besides the off-roading piece? Is there an auction? Do you have a group meal? Do people sit around the campfire at night and have a couple beers and talk about their adventures?
Yeah, we do. We've got there's a couple primitive campsites that are sponsored by various clubs. We actually have one called Camp Maybe that we sponsor, and we have a pavilion and a fire pit. So we give everybody the option, if they want to camp, they can camp at any of the sites. Just make sure you leave it the way you found it, nice and clean. They do have a few bunkhouses that are available for renting. They do have an RV site with electrical and water hookup, and they have a couple cabins. And so usually we've got a variety of people that either do the RV or the primitive camping. And yes, people actually sit by the campfire at night telling stories. We actually have a few that actually play instruments. Our Vice President of DFW, Joe Pitts, plays the fiddle quite well. And we've got another, Pete, who that plays the guitar. So they usually are playing at night. So we do get a little bit of live music around the campfire.
That's cool.
Some of the various other non-related events to the off-roading is, of course, the kids' activities that we've had. This year, the first year, on Thursday, we had the happy hour. It was a Thursday evening, kind of bringing everybody together. Barnwell Mountain has a main pavilion, and that's usually where all the catered meals are held, and the Saturday night raffle is held. And we had that Thursday night, and it was Louisiana Cajun cooking food. We had that. The food truck did that for us. And that was sponsored by Land Rover Dallas, Frisco, and Austin. So it was just another good way to keep bringing people together so you can talk and meet new friends. And then we do have a Friday night catered dinner. And that's usually Mexican food because people like Mexican food. And then Saturday night is the Saturday night dinner and raffle. And we usually have barbecue because when people come to Texas, they think of barbecue. So we usually have that on Saturday. We try to have like beginner classes for those who are beginners new, because we do get a few new people that have never off-road. So we offer beginners classes usually that Friday and Saturday morning. And then the first thing we did this year that was new, the one thing I've noticed in the last 2 years is we're starting to get more ladies that are actually going to either becoming a club member, or we're getting more ladies that attend SCARR. So the idea between myself and another club member, Sarah Caldwell, was to do the first ladies run, make it where it was exclusively ladies and let them, try out off-roading on the trails and do it on the beginners. And so what we did is Sarah had named it the Barber Toy Tribute Run, and Rovers North was a sponsor of that. They provided each lady driver with a baseball cap and a decal that was specifically made for that run. So that actually turned out to be a big hit. We actually had, we expected 3 lady drivers. We ended up with 12 lady drivers,
Excellent.
Which was awesome.
What kind of vehicles were they driving?
You believe it or not, we had LR3s. We had a Disco 4, right-handed side. Matter of fact, Sarah drives a Disco 4 with its right hand. And we had a Range Rover Sport.
Sweet.
So we did have that one. She did have street tires, so we got to have our first training on pulling. We'd had a lot of rain that week, so we hit a spot that was real muddy, so we had to do the strap. We actually still had 2 guys. They were just passengers, the 2 trail leaders. So the ladies got to experience and to observe what you do when you get stuck on a trail.
Excellent.
But all the ladies had a great time. They just really loved it. And we want to expand that and have it more next year.
How did that event, that specific, sub-event or activity get started? Where did it come from?
Well, actually, like I said, we were discussing a ladies type event and we didn't know what to call it. And Sarah had read about Barbara Toy, who was an Australian playwright, author, and she had on a bet in a London pub. So a guy had bet her she couldn't go drive in a Land Rover across the country in Baghdad, and she had always wanted to do that. It was one of her bucket lists. So she managed to get a Series 1 that she named Pollyanna, and ended up doing her first trip driving to Baghdad. And she was the first woman to ever do an overland trip like that, and actually kind of ahead of her time before they started having those expeditions that the men took.
Wow.
And so we decided that's a perfect thing because, with Land Rover, and one thing I love about off-roading, it's changed my whole life. Being a club member, learning to go off-roading, your Land Rover takes you places. You're not necessarily taking you places. The Land Rover's taking you to places, and you're learning all kinds of stuff. And it's a great builder confidence because we had a lot of ladies on the trails that had, mostly they were spouses and their husbands drove, and they were able to do it, and they felt a lot more confident. So it was just, so that's where we came up with the idea, because here was Barbara Troy, being an adventurous woman, did several journeys in her Pollyanna, and then also wrote several books on her journeys.
That is awesome.
I did not know any of this. I now need to do research.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, she's wrote several books. Her first book was A Fool on Wheels. That was her first book there. But she did that on a bet. And Land Rover ended up asking her when she was continuing to go with the Series 2. So she sold her Pollyanna to Mr. Shakespeare, bought it and had it. And she tried to buy it back several years later because she missed it.
Of course she did.
Yeah, she missed it. And then so she, when he passed away, she ended up buying it back in 1989. And she drove it again, I believe. And the current owner, I'm trying to remember, is Tom and Guy Pickford. And Sarah actually contacted Tom, and he's actually updated it. He has his own website and his own Facebook page. I'll have to email that to you.
I recall hearing about Pollyanna before. Was that not Mike Bishop who was on the show? Didn't he talk about Pollyanna? Didn't it show up at when the Defender line ended, and didn't they have it as one of the representative vehicles? Does anybody remember that?
I can't remember if it was that or one of the first overland vehicles.
Maybe that was it. Okay. Oh, yeah. So when did?
Still an excellent story.
Oh, it's a fantastic
amazing
story. No, yeah.
And a great name for the tribute run.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's
and our
outstanding.
plans for next year is we wanted, this was like a beginners, and like, in all events, I usually have a beginners and intermediate. We want to start that like next year for if we get new beginner lady drivers, but those who are more experienced, and take it even to the next level, learning more technical stuff, doing more technical trails, and then maybe learning a little bit more about recovery and items like that. So that way you could do, you get a group of ladies, and maybe what we'll end up doing is our own overland barbecue run overland trip, and just get a group of people who want to do that.
I'm gonna have to get Katie to come join you guys. This sounds amazing.
That's outstanding. In discussing you joining the show, you had indicated that you were looking to expand that Barbara Toy tribute run, and you would be interested in speaking to people if they want to set that similar event up in their, at their events or in their country. So how would folks go contact you if they wanted to do a similar event or understand more about it?
They could email me at dl-events@texasrovers.org.
That's a good idea, too. It's a spectacular idea.
Yeah. Oh, and the funny part, too, is Sarah and I only expected like 3 drivers. That was about it. We knew the certain ones that would do it. And we've got a group that's called the Fun Zone, and they've got their, spouses or girlfriends and stuff. And one of our club members, Daryl Oliver, the plan was to act this out at happy hour, that happy hour event, to kind of get people introduced to who Barbara Toy was. And he actually told them, I bet you guys can't do it. And they ended up doing it because he enticed them. And that's how we ended up with a lot more people. So it kind of followed in with the way the Barbara Toy did it.
Wow. That's really cool event. I just think that's a neat idea.
I'll send you a decal. How's that? If you got a special lady.
Oh yeah. Oh, of course. Don't we all?
That's right.
Mine's sitting right outside. It's a 1980 Series 3. I got to use it. It was very exciting. I got to use it. It's been so stinking hot here that I rolled up the sides already, and I wanted to take the door tops off, and I didn't have a chance even to take the door tops off.
So you got it running?
It is running. It's been running very well the last
awesome.
last couple months. So yes, it is running. Thank you very much. The 110, and we will come back to you, Laura. I'm not taking over the show and talking about me like I like to do.
Oh no, it's okay.
But the 110's in for restoration, so hopefully it will. I was going to ask Harold about it today, but he's not here. Back to SCARR and back to Texas Rovers. How did you, Laura, get into Land Rovers? What's your background? What's your story? You said you've been with the chapter for 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. How I ended up in the Land Rover world was, I guess, by fate. The president of the club, Christopher Poulin, I actually worked with him at a company, my previous job, and my ex-brother-in-law at the time, had purchased a Freelander. Well, it turned out, he said, well, you guys need to come out. We're working on our pavilion. They were trying to get it ready before SCARR in 2006. So I convinced my brother-in-law at the time to take myself, my nephew, and my 2 nieces out there. And it turned out I enjoyed the off-roading, and I got invited to go to SCARR. And that's when I really, truly fell in love with the Land Rover, just the great outdoors and everything. And it turned out my nephew and I enjoyed it more than the nieces and my brother-in-law. So in November 2006, I actually bought my first Land Rover was a 2001 Silver Discovery. And that's how I came involved with the Land Rover community. And little did I know I'd end up being the events coordinator 6 months later.
The disease got you very quickly.
It got me. Yeah, I was known as the Rover groupie for a couple months until I found my Rover. So.
Good. That's actually, that sounds about right. That's like. I mean,
but I tell you what, I ended up on that one. I put sliders on it. I had a roof rack on it. Of course, I had the ladder and the brush guard. And the company I work now at that time, we had a VP. And he would call me because you know how Texas is known for their hailstorms and the rainstorms. Mm-hmm. And he'd call me and he goes, Laura, because he likes Land Rover too. And he goes, you need to get that fine vehicle in that covered parking. I said, I can't. The roof rack, it won't fit under the covered parking with the roof rack. I said, it's going to have to take a beating. But that's what a Rover does.
Exactly.
And it keeps on going.
So what are you driving now? Do you still have that 01 Disco?
No, I actually upgraded to a 2009 LR3, and nice. I love it.
Oh, that's cool. Good.
I love it. I actually did it. I did Bill Burke's trip last May in Utah, and I learned a lot about that vehicle and what I could do. So it was awesome.
Sweet. That's cool. So tell us more about your. You're allowed to say Disco 3 on this podcast, by the way, because we shy away from the LR3 and LR4 nomenclature. I don't know why.
Okay, that's good. I prefer Disco.
Yeah, good. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So what's the color interior? What mods have you made to it?
I haven't made too many. I've got the Due South Johnson rods on my Disco 3. It's got light tan interior. It also is black. And
that's good. That's good for the Texas heat.
That's all I've done right now. So.
Yeah, black is good for the Texas heat, huh?
I know. Well, I had no choice. I wanted a different color, and we have a club member here who's actually, he doesn't do the Land Rover dealership. He's another one, but he got this vehicle in, and he goes, "Laura, this is great. I found your vehicle for you." So I couldn't be finding a new one. It's very hard to find them out here in Dallas, Fort Worth. Everybody seems to be keeping the Disco 3s and the Disco 4s.
Oh yeah. Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, it's
yeah, and I have a camp kitchen. I do have a camp kitchen now, so cooking outdoors is a lot more fun now.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So do you do any Dutch oven cooking, or is it just or do you have like a cooker?
No, I'm actually starting to work on a little bit more on cooking with cast iron. That's my goal now this summer and the fall, to do more with Dutch oven. I prefer cooking with that.
That's cool. We just went on a camping trip a couple weeks ago, and this is a new one on me, and it was so simple and easy. I don't understand why we've not done this before. Cut up a bunch of vegetables, meat, and you had like a little buffet style. You took a piece of tin foil, you put what you wanted in the tin foil, wrapped it up, threw it in the coals of the fire. 10 minutes later, you had a meal.
That sounds great.
And it was so easy. It was like, wait a minute, why have we not done this? We've been camping, this group of friends and I, for like 20 years, and finally someone's like, hey, let's get some tin foil. And they're like, wait, this is like brilliant. Yeah, I don't have to bring the grill anymore. Like, yeah. So, sorry, a little off topic there, but yeah. Well, there you go. Food. I like the food. So.
Yeah, I do too. I love food.
The aluminum foil in the fire is great with potatoes, corn, anything like that. You just toss it in. It's awesome.
I got some ground beef. Others had some like bits of steak, and because we cut steak up, and then there was chicken, and it cooked right up. Of course, you always leave it on too long because you're worried about having uncooked food. But
right.
But still, it was like, and you got what you wanted. You took your portion size. You took what you liked. And then it was yours. It was like I said, like a buffet in a way. It was really like stupidly smart, Why would
you need to try this dessert? You take a banana and you just slice the peel slightly in the banana, and you take some Hershey chocolates and you break them apart, put it in there, wrap the banana in the foil, and put it on the hot coals for about 5 minutes, and that's a wonderful dessert.
Again, why has no one ever thought of that before? That sounds like so. So, okay, take a banana, cut it lengthwise. You peel it and then cut it lengthwise.
Right, but you keep the peel on there. You just kind of slice the peel on the top, and then put some chocolate, break the Hershey chocolate pieces.
The kisses.
Put it in the peel, and then put the peel back together and wrap it with foil.
And then just a couple minutes, and you've got a warm banana with melted chocolate.
Yeah, and if you want to do any more, you can whipped cream, marshmallows, whatever.
Sure, you get nature s'more.
That's right, nature some more, and then enjoy a cold one after that.
Oh, I like the cold ones. Yeah. That's another subject for another podcast. How about the beer? Yeah,
the beer.
Yes, beer's always.
I'm a wine drinker, so.
Oh, quite all right. That's quite all right. Quite acceptable. So, Laura, you are the events coordinator for SCARR and the events coordinator for the Dallas-Fort Worth chapter of Texas Rovers. Is there anything we didn't cover that you wanted to bring up, something we forgot? I guess not. It sounds like we covered everything wonderfully, and it was brilliant and perfect.
Right.
How long is SCARR?
Just remind people that we've got a Texas Rovers Facebook page if they want to go there, and they'll have to ask to be invited, and we'll accept them. That one will have upcoming news and events for the club, and then, of course, our website.
I think you even let me into the Facebook page. So yeah,
I did let you. Yeah, I did let you in.
You did.
And then you can go to the website, which we have a lot of information, and people can go there for events, information on SCARR. We do have a SCARR forum, and if they want to see who the sponsors were, because without our sponsors, SCARR wouldn't be where it is today.
Sure.
The one thing I focus on is the sponsors, the activities, and just making it a good quality event. And from there, everything else comes together.
Wonderful. How long has Texas Rovers been around? Do you know?
You're asking. Hold on. 2001. So I want to say 2001.
Okay.
Or 2000. We've got members that are 16-year members. It was originally started in 1995, and then it was reestablished, I want to say, in 2000 or 2001.
Okay.
So like I said, we've got several members that are going on 16 years, a couple 15 years, and quite a few going on 10 years. The club just keeps growing, it seems like. I think one of the keys to success for anyone that wants to have a club is, making it family oriented, offering a lot of activities, and just bringing people together. Because a lot of our club members do stuff outside the club. You've got people that have gone to people's weddings, or they go and, you know how guys are. You like to work on your Rovers in the truck. They'll have their own tech day. And we usually do have a tech day right before SCARR. North Texas British, they let us come in. And we get to, use their lifts, and you can do what you want to on there. You got to bring your own tools.
Wow, that's nice. That's a nice little, having the space to work on your truck, and especially a lift is always good.
Yeah.
Nice. So SCARR's been around for 13 years. 2016 was a 13th annual SCARR. And yes, it is. I'm finally looking at the website. I try not to, while people are Skyping in, I try not to do too much searching because it usually affects the Skype connection. So got it pulled up here. 13th annual SCARR event was in 2016 at the Barnwell Mountain in Gilmer, Texas. And we'll have a link to that again in the show notes. And I invite everyone to go check that out and look at that event. And if you're interested or in that area and want to go to the event, go ahead and sign up. And when does SCARR registration open up, by the way, Laura?
It usually is going to be January 1st.
Okay, so January 1st, and so look for that. Maybe join their Facebook page and find out about that. And if you're interested in the Barber Toy Tribute Run, and maybe you want to start one in your own community, in your own area, in your own Land Rover event, then feel free to reach out to Laura, and again, we'll have information for you on how to do that. Laura, I want to thank you very kindly and warmly for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
And I guess we should thank Jerome for making the suggestion. And he listened to our last show and said, "Hey, what do you know about SCARR?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've heard of it." And he goes, "Hey, you should reach out and have him on the show." So thanks, Jerome. Wonderful suggestion. Do you know Jerome, Laura?
Yes, I do. Yeah,
Okay.
He's a DFW member.
Ah, cool. What's he drive? Do you know?
He drives a Series 1. I mean, not a Series, a Discovery 1.
Disco one. Ah, sweet. Okay,
Disco
cool.
one.
Yeah, nice. Good deal. All right. When we come back, we're going to talk with our next guest, and Vasily, and I'm not going to say his last name because I haven't asked him how to say it yet. But when we come back, we'll talk to Vasily. The Centresteer podcast is proud to have our first sponsor, LTW Knives. LTW Knives are handcrafted in Ohio with the finest locally sourced materials. They build everything from everyday carry to bushcraft and even overland specific. Everything that LTWK builds comes with a lifetime guarantee and is designed from the ground up to be a solid working knife. Each piece is constructed with survival in mind, knives with a proven international pedigree that have been there and back. Bushcraft, hunting, camping, overland, and everyday carry models are available. Our new Bushcrafter HC is an excellent example of an everyman knife, able to do everything from help get the campfire started to skinning game. Being made from 3/32 1075 steel and with a convex edge, it will resharpen easily in the field. These heirloom quality pieces will outlast your adventure, so plan well, drive safely, and carry an LTWK. Find out more online at ltwrightknives.com or centresteer.com/LTWK. Welcome back to the Centresteer podcast. This is show 38 for May of 2016. As I said, we have two guests, and our second guest this month is Vasily Lantukh. He's an IT guy from Atlanta, Georgia. A little interesting side note, it just seems like there's a lot of IT people that like Land Rovers. Myself and Morgan are IT people, and even Harold has an IT background at one point. So Vasily responded to one of my podcast questions of, hey, feel free to post about your truck or about a truck that you might like to have. And he did. He posted on the Facebook page about his Defender 90 that he had. And then he and I started conversing, and I said, this sounds like a really interesting story. I want to get you on the show, and I want to hear about the story. And the high-level version, and he'll give us all the gory details, is that he ended up buying a Defender 90 from, I think, Maryland. And as I said, he lives in Georgia. And it is now his wife's. And she won't let him get rid of the truck. And so, Vasily, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. And it's going to be, I'm hoping, I know, no pressure. This better be a great story because I've been plugging this away.
Well, thanks for having me, and I like pressure, so I don't really mind.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So Vasily, tell us the story about how you have your D90. What year, and what anything special about it, and then how'd you end up with it?
Yeah, sure. So I've kind of been, I don't know, fantasizing about owning one for a long time, and about a year and a half ago, I was able to. Just kind of the stars aligned, and I was casually looking around for one, and I was working in Wilmington, Delaware at the time. I had a client up there, and there's a guy in Philadelphia that was selling a 97 blue Defender, the station wagon, and I reached out to him. It turned out we followed each other on Instagram, so we kind of had, I don't know how that happened, fate, I guess. But so I reached out to him, and I said, hey, I'm going to be up for work in Wilmington next week, and if you can let me see the truck, I'm not going to make you any promises because I know people are knocking on your door trying to get this thing right now, but just let me see it on Monday. And then if we don't come to an agreement or whatever, we can you can sell it to whoever you want. But anyway, so he honored his word. He didn't sell it that week, and when I came up for work during lunch break, I met with him at his bank and just bought it there. And then
Did you even look at it?
Oh, yeah, I looked at it.
Okay.
Made sure it started. And then at the end of the week, instead of flying back home, because I travel a lot for work, I flew my wife up to Philly, and we took a long weekend and drove it down from Philly to Knoxville, Tennessee, where we lived at the time. So that's a really condensed version, but I can kind of go into some details. But it was kind of the shakedown run was 600 miles.
Yeah.
And got to learn a lot about it. Had no issues, and it was fun. And I don't know how my wife talked or how I talked her into this, but she was like, "Yeah, this sounds awesome," And she drove it back the whole way because I don't drive because of my eyesight, and she loved it. She had a great time, and it was very different from anything that she has experienced before. And so, we had a great time. And
well, how did you get into Land Rovers? Like, why I know you had told me you had this fantasy for a long time. Where did that come from? Like, how did that start?
So as a kid, I was looking at, I guess it was probably National Geographic or something in the mid 90s or early 90s. And there was an ad for Discovery, like Land Rover Discovery in the magazine. And I called the number. I think it was like 1-800-FIND four-wheel drive or something. I don't remember. But anyways, so I called them, and they sent me some literature. And in the literature was this thing on the Defender. So this must have been 95. And I just looked at it, and I was like, I want that truck. And to me, it was kind of like, how kids put up posters of, I don't know, Ferraris or Lamborghinis or whatever on their room. Well, for me, it was a Defender 90. And
nice.
And it was completely, I don't know, it wasn't practical in any way. So my family immigrated from the Soviet Union, and in the early 90s and mid 90s, we were very poor. And there's also a lot of us, right? I have 5 siblings.
Oh, wow.
So I tried to talk my dad into getting a Discovery series, like a Series 1 Discovery, because it sat 7 people. And, he was like, absolutely not. So anyway,
what are you, nuts?
That's basically what he said. And and back in the 90s, it wasn't an inexpensive car.
No.
And for my family, it was not even it wasn't even approachable. So I kind of kept up with the brand through school and as I was getting older, and then kind of kept up pretty religiously until I went to college, and that was about the time that the LR3 came out and the third generation of the Range Rover came out, and I kind of lost interest. And I was, I was an adult now, and I was kind of put away your childish dreams, So I stayed up with it for a really long time, kind of kept up with what the brand was doing and everything. And then a few years ago, some combination of having a good job and we didn't have kids and we didn't own our home and no debt and we both worked. And so I was like, hey, what would be awesome is if we kind of bought a Defender. And my wife thought I was joking.
Had she known about your obsession all along?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And she's actually it's pretty funny because I always point out Land Rovers to her, regardless of what they are.
I do that with my girlfriend too.
Well, the best part is she'll be driving with like her friends, and she'll be like, "Oh, that's a Series 1 Discovery," to her girlfriends. They have no idea what she's talking about. She's like, "Never mind."
Wonderful.
Yeah, and so we've taken. Katie drives a 4Runner, so we've taken her 4Runner off road. We've taken the D90 off road a little bit, and she really likes it. She enjoys it. She calls it her second car, and she has instances where like she'll have a rough day at work, she'll come home for lunch to let the dog out, and then she'll swap cars and drive the Defender for the rest of the day.
Wow.
And her day gets better, so
That's
I'm okay
cool.
with that.
Is it stick or automatic?
It's an automatic. It's a
Okay.
97.
Okay.
So it's the only year that they had the automatics here in the United States.
Okay. We actually had a person in the Pittsburgh area. She had a 110. It was an AS 110, and she had it converted to automatic. Sorry, still a little annoyed by that.
Hey, well, that's what might be the next vehicle at some point. It's a lot easier to put a car seat into a 110.
Hey, there you go. That's true. Yeah, you're right. Yep. So, all right. So you lived in moved from. Now, was it actually the Soviet Union at the time?
Yeah. So
that's an interesting part of the story.
Yeah, when we left, it was 1989, I guess.
Where'd you live in Russia? Was it Russia or was it some other?
It'd be present-day Ukraine.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, so kind of the northeastern part of present-day Ukraine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we had some family in Atlanta, and so that was kind of the natural place for us to go.
Right.
But it took, during that time, there was
all Ukrainians moved to Atlanta. Is that what happened?
Oh no, there's a lot of us here,
okay.
But there's Russian communities all over the country.
Sure. Well, back in the day, the Bulgarians moved to Pittsburgh area because that's where the Bulgarian Macedonian National Education and Cultural Center is.
Oh, cool.
I only say that because I'm Bulgarian and Macedonian.
I couldn't tell you where the Ukrainian Cultural Center is.
There probably is several. There's a Ukrainian community in the Pittsburgh area too. A lot of Eastern European people moved here. Yeah. I
just bought a townhome in Atlanta, and my neighbor's Russian, and I was like, I can't get away from you people.
They probably say the same thing about you. Right?
Oh, I'm sure.
So you buy the 1995 Defender 90 from Philadelphia, and then and you drove it all the way down to Tennessee. Then you moved to Atlanta.
Yes.
And I think you had a kid in between there. Is that right?
Well, not quite.
Okay.
We will have our little girl at the end of June. So.
And you're getting. So does that mean you're going to get rid of your D90 because you need a?
Oh no. Katie won't let me get rid of it. My mother-in-law would love it if we got rid of it, but my wife will not let me get rid of it. So it is here to stay.
Well, that's good news. Yeah. Has she said the truck goes, or you go before the truck?
Not yet, but
okay.
Not in those words anyway.
Just trying to, but I think you know where you stand, right?
That's right.
Have you done any mods to it, or any changes besides from normal maintenance and things? But have you done anything to help maybe off-roading?
Definitely not off-roading. I actually put running boards on it, or as I call them, one-time use rock sliders.
There you go.
Yeah, but my wife and I are both vertically challenged, so yeah. So I don't care. For me, it doesn't matter, but it helps her in and out of the car a little bit.
Nothing wrong with that.
Now that we're expecting. So
sure.
But they're easy enough to take off if I had to. So it's just 3 bolts.
Yeah, well, as long as they don't look horrible, and
no, they look like the ones that came on it in '97.
Okay.
So Yeah.
Yeah, my Series 3 has a modified version. Harold actually made them for my Series 3. They're combination of rock sliders, limb clearers, and a step bar. So it's
a lot of function.
Yes. Oh, also, and you can also put the high lift jack into it. There's a place for that, and
cool.
And there's also a little slot because he made me a nice little connector for my GoPro, so the GoPro can go into the little connector that goes into the slot where you would put the high lift jack. So you can put GoPro cameras right there.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, cool stuff. So if you want special rock sliders for yours, I'm sure Harold will help you out.
Oh, it's on the wish list.
So what's next? You're going to have a kid, and you're not going to sell the Defender, but are you getting a little more of a family car, or?
Well, our other cars, we have a 4Runner. It's got like 230,000 miles on it, and it's a I don't know, an 03, I think. Yeah, 03, and it's a 4-wheel drive, and it's awesome. But hopefully, there's going to be something coming in the next couple of years. That's not, at some point, it's just, you don't want to keep fixing it, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I don't want to. I'm not sure I want my wife and baby in a car that's over 250,000 miles on it. So
yeah.
So we'll see. And see, I don't know what it's going to be yet. I kind of want an LR4, or I'm sorry, a Discovery 4.
You're allowed to say Discovery 4 is completely acceptable on this podcast.
That's right. And if I can get the one I wanted, it'd be with the V8 with the locking rear differential.
Of course.
And so I'm hoping with the new Discovery that we talked about earlier in the show, hopefully it's going to kind of depress some prices. And, fast forward a year and a half from now, maybe I'll be able to pick one up and not pay out the nose for it, because right now they're hard to find.
They are. The interesting thing about even both Disco 3 and Disco 4 is I've been surprised how well those prices have held up. You would think they would. Even except for the 2005, which no one should buy, and that is, I think anyone who looks into buying any Disco, if you look into the news or reviews, everyone says don't buy the 05. That's right. Don't do it. But all the other ones, even in anywhere one like an 06 and up. I forget when they made the change from the 3 to the 4. I think it was like 09. But, those, they'll have 80,000, 100,000 miles on them, and they still want $25,000 for these things.
Yep.
I'm like, how?
Right.
How? That was not my experience with the D1 or the D2.
No. Well, maybe it says something about the brand finally getting their act together. They're building cars that are desirable and kind of reliable over 60,000 miles and
don't fall apart. And
don't fall apart.
The airbags don't collapse.
Comfortable.
Yeah. Unlike some Range Rovers we've talked about. Yeah. Okay, so you what about the new upcoming Defender? Is that I know we know nothing about it, of course, but what we little knew, would that be a consideration for you? You think?
We've talked about this with my wife. Probably. I mean, I'd entertain it, but I don't know that I would want the first model year. It's kind of like the 05 or whatever.
Yeah, you're right. Good point. Yeah, do you want the first the first Defender out of the box? That's a good question.
That's right. So I'm cautiously optimistic about it. Actually, I'm thinking Land Rover has a lot riding on the success of that vehicle, and it's not a big company. JLR. They can't. It's not like American brands where you can have a car that fails and not affect, I guess, like the parent company, Yeah,
right.
Land Rover, I feel like, they have to knock it out of the park every time they come up to bat, and I think they know that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means it's going to be something that you and I would like, or if it means it's going to be something that, will sell well to.
I think we had a little audio problem there. I think you were saying so well to the general public.
I'm sorry, I thought I might have gotten cut out there. I was saying I'm not sure if it's something you and I would like, or if it's something that would just sell well to the masses, but we would be interested in.
Oh, I think we know the answer. Come on.
I'm trying to be optimistic here.
Yeah.
For the soccer moms.
Yes, yes, the soccer moms. If you're not from North America, that's football. But I think we know the answer. I think we know what it's going to look like. I think we know.
Yeah,
it's going to have a bulbous front end. And then a sloping roof, except for the the pickup models and all that. But Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how you could incorporate that bulbous front end into a pickup. Like I don't get it.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But hey, maybe with that thinking, maybe it is possible that it will look unlike the rest of the line, and maybe that'll be, which I think we're all kind of hoping for. Yeah, instead of what I call the Range Roverification of the entire model line, because they all look like Range Rovers.
Right. Well, that's been going since 2003, right? So at some point, you kind of have to go in a different direction. You can't have every vehicle in your lineup look more or less the same for 15 years.
Well,
or maybe you can. It's working for them so far.
That's going to be my point. And maybe exactly, it's working for them. I mean, sales are up, right? And they're selling well. So, and yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so we'll see. I think I'm looking forward to it as much as everyone else is, but I'm not sure I'm ready to break out the pocketbook and put a deposit on one before they even come to the States. I'm not. Mm-hmm. I don't want that badly.
So your daughter, I don't know if it's a daughter or a son. You have a kid due in June. Is that right?
Yep.
That's
daughter,
cool.
Little girl.
Little girl. Good. And when's the due date?
June 28th.
June 28th. Oh, okay. So
yes.
All right. Maybe the next podcast we'll have some news on the birth of your daughter.
Yeah, that's right. I'll send you a picture with her on the bonnet or something.
Oh, that'd be cool. Well, our Mark Garcia, who joined us, I had I think mentioned you off air that he just had a kid, and that's why he hasn't been able to join us in the show. But when he said the daughter, I think her name was Grace, and Grace was born, and he says he drove her back home from the hospital, and he made a point of saying, yes, she did go back home. Her first ride wasn't a Land Rover; it was in his series truck. So
that's great.
Yep. So
nice.
make sure you take the Defender with you to the hospital to drive your daughter back.
Right, just to make sure that my mother-in-law hates me more. I'm just kidding.
I had a feeling you were gonna. I thought you would follow up with that.
She doesn't hate me, but she would. I'm pretty sure she wouldn't forgive me for that.
She'll give you a frown. My guess is you probably hear about this all the time, don't you?
I don't. But when we first got the car, when we first got the Defender, I heard it kind of from Katie. She was like, apparently there were, her folks were like, why didn't he get you a nice car?
Well, what's Katie's background? Does she have an off-roading background or?
No, not at all.
Okay.
She has a 03 4Runner that's she got
She buy brand new or used?
No, she got it used like when she was still in school.
Okay.
And I joked that was the my in-laws, the best present to me was that they got Katie a 4Runner because it's been a dream to own.
Good.
Yeah, and it's it's the limited, so it's the all-wheel drive or permanent four-wheel drive with center diff lock and traction control and low range. And
sweet.
It has KO2s on it right now, which are pretty. Sorry, that's my alarm. My burglar alarm is going off. So it's got KO2 tires on there, so it's a pretty good car. I'll shoot you an email with a video of it on the trail. Actually, we take the 4Runner and the D90. They've both been off road, and Katie's driven them both off road. So her comfort level and expertise have grown a lot. Have
you joined any clubs in the area? Is there a Georgia club or an Atlanta club?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's I think it's Solaris. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's like a southern, or I don't know I don't even know what it stands for.
Yeah,
they're in Atlanta. They've been here for a while. I travel for work, like I said, so I'm never able to go to their events because I'm never in town on Wednesday nights, and I'm not really sure how active they are anymore. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I want to do. I haven't been able to.
Yeah, there's always time and effort. Yes,
that's right.
I hear you. Well, Vasily, I want to thank you for talking about your Defender and how you got it and your experience and your story. I think that's pretty cool. I like how it's become part of the family and sounds like your wife probably likes it more than you do.
Well, yeah, she does as long as it's running good, she doesn't mind.
Do you work on it yourself?
I haven't had to do anything to it. Like I put those running boards on it myself.
Oh yeah. And
then when I picked it up, I took it to what's the shop? It's in Elizabethtown, PA. Rover, British 4x4 or something like that.
Okay.
I don't remember. But anyways, they just changed all the fluids, and then we drove it down to Knoxville. So And then we got, oil change once we got to Atlanta a few months ago.
Nice.
And besides that,
so you've been doing sounds you good luck with that one. That's a keeper.
I feel like I need to knock on wood. I need to get one of those wooden bracelets I've heard about.
Yes.
To keep you. Yeah.
The Rover gods have been good to you so far.
It's been actually surprisingly good that I feel like it's going to be my turn soon.
Yeah. Well, as long as with anything, keep up with the maintenance. You should
That's
be all right.
right.
Just keep a lookout for it. Well, we wish you continued good luck with your Defender, and feel free to report in on us on your life when your daughter's born and anything you do with the truck. So. Yeah,
I'll keep you posted. I might even run into you at the expo if I decide to make it out there this fall.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the expo. That'd be cool. Please do. Now, hopefully I should have some real stickers by then. I can hand them out to people.
Sounds good.
I should do something for this finally. I had a guy from Africa, and he's like, I said, I should send you a sticker. And he goes, please do. I'd love to have it. And I'm like, I got to get some first.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. So, all right. Thanks again, Vasily, for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And good luck to you.
Yeah, thanks.
So that's the podcast for this month of May 2016. I want to thank our contributors and our guests for joining us this month. Morgan, thanks very kindly for joining us on the show today.
Absolutely.
And you run seriesparts.com, so I'd like to free plug for people that are anywhere in the world that want to try to track down some Series or Defender parts. They should check out your website.
As always, thanks again.
You're quite welcome, sir, and appreciate your helping us out on the show. And also want to thank Laura from SCARR for joining us and talking. Laura from Texas Rovers for talking about SCARR. Thanks, Laura, for joining us today, Laura.
Thank you for having me.
I think we're closing the show at the right time because everybody's internet connection's starting to drop. And thanks to Vasily for talking today about his Defender and his NAS Defender. Thanks, Vasily. That is. All the internet connections are having problems. It's a good opportunity to shut this down. So that's a podcast for the month. I hope you enjoyed the show and want to thank you for listening. Please visit our website for past shows and show notes. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Twitter to give us your feedback on the news, topics we talked about, and even the audio quality. Hopefully it's holding up. We have listeners from around the world, and in the past month, I've seen folks on the Facebook page join us from Venezuela, Tanzania, Turkey, and even Canada. Welcome to our northern brothers and sisters. We'd love to hear from you, even if it's just a picture of your Land Rover or the Land Rover you lust after. As you see, Vasily did that, and he got to join us on the show. You can also visit us at 4x4radionetwork.com to listen to the other shows that are part of the network, and you can listen right on the website to those shows. So until next show, I ask you to share the show with one fellow Land Rover owner. Thanks for listening. Please wave as you pass by. Please pass as you wave by.